Welcome to the Casual Athlete behind the scenes. We're so happy to be a part of your day and so happy to be part of your Tuesday here. We've got Team List Tuesdays. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about these team lists, fantasy lists, as well as Supercoach pickups for the waiver wires too. Miles, great to have you here. I'm going to start you off with something fun. Who's your pick for an upset this week?
Mate, going to surprise a lot of people. Not just because they beat my team last week, but I'm going to go the Dragons to upset the Broncos at home. Huge call there. I really liked, though, what I saw from the Dragons on Sunday afternoon. Some might call me crazy, but I could see it happening.
Are you saying the Dragons are flying high and the Broncos are set for a fall? Is that what you're thinking?
Mate, I feel like, the rise always comes before the fall when it comes to the Broncos. And I'm just predicting the fall to be 1 week later, as opposed to, 17 or 18 weeks down the track.
We've got a few predictions coming through in the comments already. We've got Tola TV with Broncos a premiership leader. Surely you're disagreeing with that by tipping the Dragons. We've got a question. Oh, well, actually, we'll go to William first. Will, always on here. I love Will's comments. Dog's going to smash the Tigers. He's saying 13 plus. I don't hate that. We'll talk about that more when we get to the Tigers team list. But this is a nice segue from Slippery Eel, who might be an Eel supporter, just based on that name. Can Parramatta improve, or are we going to fail this year? Now, Slippery, I'm a Paraman myself. I think that it's hard to judge Parramatta this early because it's a very similar roster to last year. Hodgson's been really effective. Admittedly, Reed's been great for the Dogs as well, but we're missing Sean Lane. We're missing Ryan Madison, and both of those games were settled by a try, a clutch try. And I think if we even had Maddo in these games, we would have been 2-0 at this point. Miles, I know you feel differently about Parramatta, so feel free to jump on them.
Yeah, look, man, I'm just not liking what I'm seeing from the Eels at the moment. They're leaking points at home. They couldn't get it done against the Nico Hines-less Sharks. I mean, I know it took a lot out of you, but I just think the key thing for them, and I mentioned it in our weekly wrap-up in our YouTube video, go watch that one, guys, is that they just have such a good record at home. It's really hard for me to ignore the fact that they've lost 2 in a row at home. And now it only gets harder from here. That's the only thing I'll say. I just think their forwards are a little bit weak at the moment. They do have some guys coming back, as you said, but it's just not clicking at the moment. There's something a little amiss there.
Yeah, Will agrees with you. Eel's horrible. Sorry, Para supporters. Absolutely brutal. I shouldn't have worn my Para gear today.
Thanks, Will.
Let's jump over to fantasy, though, and look at this game because Bryce Cartwright, Matt Dury, Jermaine Hopgood, all these guys keep their spots in the team. And that bench, I thought we might have seen Mitch Rain at some point on that bench, which would have helped Jermaine Hopgood's minutes too. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing Hodgson play 80 minutes. So look, with Bryce Cartwright, Matt Dury, Jermaine Hopgood, keep the faith in those guys. Matt Dury has not been overwhelmingly successful as a fantasy prospect, but I think he's been one of those guys that keeps plodding along, keeps scoring decently. You just keep holding him, and before you know it, he'll have made 150 grand. Miles, from the Seagulls side, maybe more into the Supercoach, is there anyone there that shouts out at you?
Yeah, for me, at the moment, it's Josh Schuster being named this week, especially against Para. He's played 3 games against Para over his career. His top score is 77, but he averages 48 against Para. That's without him playing a number of different positions. I think him getting that 6th spot, it could open him up to a lot of attacking points being scored, and we know that's what Supercoach is all about. Plenty of offloads, a couple of try assists. He could have a monster game.
Yeah, I think he could be sneaky. And look, if he's on the waiver wires, you got to get Josh Schuster. He's the guy. And we've just had a bunch of people join as well. A lot of Doggies fans and TikTok too. So I can't skip ahead to the Dogs, but we will get to them soon. Next game we've got here, though, is the Knights and the Dolphins. The Knights name a team that, I'm looking at this team, Miles, and it's bad. It's bad.
Like, it looks
Phoenix,
horrendous, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Crossland is the biggest downgrade on Jaden Brayley. Tyson Gamble comes in for Kalen Ponga. You still don't have Marzu. He's on
Frizzell.
No Frizzell. You got Brody Jones come in. You got Leo Thompson at 13. Look, man wasn't the option anywhere. What do you think about this game? Do you think the Knights can end this Dolphins winning streak, or are the Dolphins going to done?
No way. No way. The Dolphins are going 3-0. I just think it was good to see the Knights put in a performance like they did last week. I haven't seen that from a Knights team in about 2 or 3 years. So to watch them have their 3 best players, I would say, go down and show the amount of fight and the amount of steel that they showed, it was pretty impressive. Jackson Hastings really stood up. I think Gamble came on and actually played pretty well, but they still only scored 14 points. It was only 2 tries. So let's not get too hyped about the Knights. I think, Heimel Hunt is probably not the guy I would put on the wing. As you said, I would have Greg Marzu. Again, for fantasy guys and Supercoach, Greg Marzu is an absolute killer when he's on the field. So I would try and hope that there's a injury or the Knights come to their senses in this regard and put him in. But at the moment, I just don't see this Knights team and their bench. It's a bunch of no names apart from Jack Johns, and we only know who he is because of his uncle.
So, we've got Haiti on the comments and TikTok too, back in those Dolphins. We've got a lot of comments coming through about the Dogs as well. So we'll go to the Dogs next. Well, let's stick to these guys. I think the Dolphins look, that game against Canberra, I thought Canberra might get them done. It was a wet game. Canberra's got a great forward pack. The Dolphins are coming off an emotional high. Admittedly, their first game at their new home ground, so they were pretty excited for it. But they just stuck in that game. It was a bit of a dirty game. And then Hamiso came up with a few clutch plays. Felice Kafusi again was just a monster. I don't think there's been a better back rower this year than Felice Kafusi.
Has he turned back the clock, do you reckon? Like, he's looking like a 23-year-old, not a 33-year-old out there at the moment.
He's looking better than when he was 23, though. Like, he's just on fire. And look, Kenny Bromwich as well. Like, a lot of people are talking about these guys and talking smack on, especially the Melbourne forwards coming out and saying they're not going to replicate anything because they don't have Munster feeding them. They don't have Jaron Hughes feeding them or Harry Grant, but they've been exceptional. One thing that's a bit concerning, though, is you lose Jeremy Marshall-King and you bring in Cody Nikorima, and the identity of this Dolphins team so far has been that they're a monster on defense. They're very physical, very aggressive. But can Cody Nikorima match that the way Jeremy Marshall-King was bringing it, is my question to you.
I think attacking-wise, absolutely. Cody Nikorima always had the running game to, make any team look like fools. He's quick off the mark. He's really good footwork. But, I've never seen that defensive work rate from Cody Nikorima. But under the best coach in the game at the moment, I would say that we're probably going to get a different version of Nikorima. He's probably going to choose his moments a bit better. They'll try and hide him, I think, in defense because he's not, I guess, the most strong first contact player. And Jeremy Marshall-King's been doing that role for a while. But, I'm a bit surprised they haven't picked up a more notable hooker to replace Jeremy Marshall-King because Cody Nikorima has played a lot at 5'8", a lot of fullback. So it's going to be interesting, but I do think the Dolphins get this one done in the end. Their forward pack, while underrated going into the season, has proven everyone wrong in the last 2 weeks. And if you look at the Knights forward pack, it's nowhere near as strong at the moment.
Yeah, we've got a few comments going through too. Keegan just comes in. Sorry, just got here. What's the thoughts on JMK? Keegan's one of the best sort of followers of the casual athlete. Comments on everything.
Yeah,
always love
great.
it.
Love you, Keegan.
So for Keegan, that we were just going through it, but look, Cody Nikorima doesn't bring that same intensity and physicality that Jeremy Marshall-King does. So there's questions around that. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they were to move Ray Stone to that starting hooker spot, maybe for the first 20 minutes even. He's not a hooker fully, but you bring him out, you weather that physical storm at the start, and you bring Cody Nikorima on for the last 60 minutes because there's no way Cody's playing 80. And I don't see sort of where else they go with this. We've got a few other comments too.
Yeah, plus,
yep.
Yeah.
So
plus, I think Tom Gilbert was great in that 13
we're a bit delayed
last
there,
week
but
as well. So there's no reason to change him.
Blue water football fishing. Kafusi, Maroons jersey, no doubt. Will, fins up. And I'm not ignoring you all on TikTok as well. A couple of questions around what the Tigers should do with their team. I think the Dogs v Tigers game is going to be probably the most contended one here. We might skip to that next. Seb Howell, aren't you the guy from the Sportsbet ad? I wish, but keep tagging Sportsbet and see if we can make it happen. Balin, thoughts on the Dragons? Miles tipped a Dragons upset this week, so stay tuned for that Dragons segment because he's thinking the Dragons will beat the Broncos. We've got Jar Jar Binks, the Dragons undefeated. Toxic Short King. Oh no, I'm going to do one of those reaction videos where they call guys Short King. No, I'm not short. Oh my god, no, I don't care. Yeah, let's roll through the Dogs and the Tigers because it's popular demand. We can skip ahead. There's no rules here. We're not on Fox Sports. So Dogs v Tigers. Juicy game here.
First Sunday game.
I would like this one if we weren't looking at such a depleted Tigers lineup. Miles, I want you to give me your thoughts here on how this one goes.
First of all, Staines at fullback is just a mistake. Like, I can't believe, he's not big enough and I think crafty enough to play the fullback position. I think we saw it for a long period of time in that game against the Knights and they could get nothing going. They ended up crashing over through Uitoka Manu or something down the middle through Api Coruscant as well. What I find so disappointing about the Tigers is that they talked all off season about, we are getting shades of 2005. It's been, Tim Sheens and Benji Marshall coming back, and they've instilled this, confidence in us to throw the ball around. And are you seeing any of that? I'm seeing none of that. Am not.
No, I'm seeing none of that. They're a depressing team to watch, and I'm really angry at them because I spent a lot of the preseason saying the Tigers are going to be in the top 8. The Tigers, they have the right.
Immediately what I thought of.
If they play the right style, they have the perfect roster though, because they could, looking at that team, they could easily top the competition in offloads. They could easily, sort of top the competition in terms of winger meters because they got a couple of massive unit wingers. They've got some back rowers who can score tries. John Bateman and Papali'i, if they play neither, are named this week, which is terrible. And then Coruscant, who's just been a total disappointment. I just thought when they went to that game against Newcastle, and Newcastle had 12 men for the last 15 minutes, the Tigers would be able to create something. And it was just tough viewing.
They'd be able to get it done. Yeah,
it was tough viewing. Who are you playing?
Now this week they're turning up. They're turning up with Pole starting. I don't think he'll start for Nua Pole. Sean Blaw and Kepa Owa, who's a centre winger. They've shoved him into second row, which I just think is ridiculous. I'm hearing a lot of we should blame it on Brooks, and I don't think this is in any way Brooks's fault. I think with the Sharks, with the Tigers, it's been a 10-year no change of upper management or upper to mid-level management. They've been the ones there for about 10 years, and they have been the guys that need to take responsibility for what's currently going on, because someone needs to step up. And right now, the fall guys have been the guys, either playing in the team or coaching the team, and no one from that level up has really taken any major responsibility for their faults in recent years. I'm done with the Tigers. Let's talk about the Bulldogs because they were great the other day.
Talk about the Bulldogs. I'll tell you who I was excited about, and this is not who anyone's talking about right now. But
let's talk about the Bulldogs.
Paul Alamotti. Paul Alamotti was very exciting, very physical, very strong in this game. And he didn't sort of feature in a lot of the attacking plays, but he showed a bit of why he's so hyped up. So I'm excited about him. But look, who are you looking at here, Miles, that you were impressed by?
Definitely. Mate, it's Carraz. Carraz just, I think he probably was the best player of the round. He sparked everything for the Dogs. He made 9 tackle breaks, I think it was, over 200 meters with the ball, 3 offloads. He's a winger. He should be scoring the tries, not, offloading the ball, but he got everything going. Max King was great in the middle. I'm still not seeing enough from their halves, though. Burton and Flanagan,
Miles,
they really need to pick it up.
Where do you rank Carraz as far as centre wings in Supercoach?
Right now, he's number 1.
Where do you rank
just based on points scored? But if
If someone offered
Oh, I think
you
he can. He
Ryan
can be in
Toa
top
for
5
Kraz, would
Supercoach
you do
player.
it?
Right now, no. Just based on what I've seen from Penrith and the way their attacking structure looks, I don't think that To'o's going to score that many tries this year. Whereas the Dogs, they play the way that they played on the weekend almost every week, scoring 24, 26 points, maybe letting in a few tries as well, then you're going to get a ton of extra points from that. And I had Karaz, so I was pretty happy about that.
We've got a
It's the
comment
way I expected him to
through
play.
on TikTok here. So Kyle's just asked, do you believe Flano cops too much hate as Burton was signed as the elite half? It's a fair question. I don't think Flano's copying the hate necessarily when I look at this team. No one's really saying, Flanagan is disappointing, Flanagan is underperforming. I think people are saying Flanagan's the wrong fit for this team. And look, Burton's a bit like Jack Whiten and Dylan Brown, actually. A few of these guys that are at 6, in that they're super specific number 6s. So they're not kind of generalist halves who can play both spots like a Cam Munster or someone like that. They're very much a ball running 6 who can kick the ball long, but primarily they're in that pure 5'8" role, a bit like Brad Fittler back in the day. And they need a number 7 who's going to steer the team around. So you think of vintage Jamie Soward, you think of Cooper Cronk, who would be perfect alongside any of these guys. I think of I always say this, but was at the Raiders. He would have been a great signing for the Dogs over the last few years, again, next to Burton. A guy like Mitch Moses, who every club seems to want. So I think Flanagan's not the right guy for their team. And I think there's no point in hating on him because he's a pretty good player and he's a first-grade player, but he's just not the number 7 for the Dogs going forward.
No. I completely agree with you there. I definitely think that Kyle Flanagan could kill it in Super League. Or be with potentially a more ball, a bit of a more of a steerer than Burton. It's a guy like, a guy who can take the pressure off Flanagan to steer the team around. Like, I think if you almost had Flanagan at 5'8" at some point, and he had a more, kicking 6 to go with him, that would almost be a decent move for him. But, I just think that they're not getting it together at the moment. And it's really a matter of time with this as to how long they let it run for.
While we're talking sticking with it, we got a question from Blue Water Sports Fishing. Where do you guys rank Jackson Hastings? Jackson Hastings would have been a great option for the Dogs, by the way, in the off-season. So if they could have gotten him, that would have been really nice. Blue Water mentions he's a 26-year-old and a 40-year-old league brain. I think he would have been the guy to get, though, because he probably could have gotten him pretty cheap from the Tigers. They were looking to free up some cash, and he'd do the job. They'd probably be probably not top 4 with the way the forward pack looks right now, but definitely a top 8 contender if they had Jackson Hastings.
What I will say is that I think Jackson Hastings is getting some of his contract paid by the Tigers still as well, and that's even makes it even cheaper, right? So exactly. I'm not sure what the Dogs were thinking there. If they thought he was on the market, maybe they didn't even know that he was going around, or whether they were shopping him around because it looked like they were shopping Brooks. But I think in last week's game, though, I was very impressed by the Dogs. Young guy Jacob Preston was really good in the trials. I was glad to see him get a start there. Means Faitala Mariner goes to the lock.
Preston. Let's stay on Preston for a sec.
Yeah.
Because Fantasy Supercoach, he didn't do as much in the first game, but in the second game he exploded. There's plenty of pathway to a spot in this team. Like Fairmanu Brown is not a big minute number 13. Frank Compele is
Faitala Mariner.
Isn't either. No. And like Corey Waddell, they've seen him before. Ockenbaugh's on the bench there. He's not going to play in the forwards. Like Preston could be that guy. I think you have to have Preston in your team for fantasy or Supercoach. Like if you don't have him, you're just going to get left so far behind in terms of team value. He's going to gain 200K in fantasy and Supercoach before you know it. So go get Preston right now. We're going to make a fantasy video shortly afterwards. This is sort of our preparation video as we look through the team list. But he's a guy you have to go get. Saying that, people are talking Ryan Sutton for fantasy. He scored 47 and 48 so far. I think, the ship has sailed a bit on that one. You're not going to get that much out of him, and Tavita Pangai could come back very soon as well. So I wouldn't run to him. You can still go get Reed.
Also, one thing I will say as well, Franklin Pele was outstanding off the bench for them the other day. He is a big human and was running over the top of some very weak to Storm defense. So I'd keep an eye out for him potentially stealing that starting spot as well.
Right to the next game, because we're getting a lot of questions about the Roosters and the Rabbitohs. So I'm just going to jump right across to that next.
The old
Roosters Rabbitohs is always
rivalry.
The best game. It's just such a good game. All right, so Roosters Rabbitohs. Look, we've got Tamid coming through on that one. Roosters Rabbits. Okay, so first thing I'm going to point out here is the Roosters are starting to look like their regular team this week. You throw in Jared Warrior-Hargraves back. You throw in Victor Radley back. You name Brandon Smith. I don't know if he starts, but this is starting to look like a normal Roosters team here, and it's only going to get better as the season goes along. Saying that, Souths had a pretty good game against Penrith. They were sort of clamped up, and Penrith played really well. Like the Roosters won't match the line speed that Penrith produced in that game. I don't know which way I'm leaning.
Were you surprised to see Isaac Thompson keep his spot?
I have Isaac Thompson in basically every draft and every fantasy league. I picked Isaac Thompson in everything because he's a prolific try scorer who plays for Souths, right? It was as simple as that. But he was shocking in that Panthers game. And there were a couple of wingers who arguably cost their team games. Isaac Thompson was one of them. Bailey Sirinen was another one for Parramatta. They're guys who, if they get another shot this week, it's sort of death row. I wouldn't be surprised if both get dropped. And I think Isaac Thompson's going to get dropped too because Tane Milne's on the extended bench here. So I don't think we'll see him.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting for fantasy is a lot of people were asking about us about Lachlan Ilias last week. And he did exactly what we said he was going to do. He returned to earth with about a 25-point score. Because he's not that guy for fantasy. He's just not that guy. So, yeah, if you have him, you probably have to trade him out. You probably want to trade him for Preston and then trade another mid-range player for a gun. So, yeah. I mean, who are you tipping in this one, Moss?
Jeez. I think the Roosters have not been that impressive, to be fair. I think their outside backs are probably just a little bit stronger than the Rabbitohs. And then for me, it comes down to the forward battle. I don't think Cheekham is a long-term fix there, but they're still waiting on Jai Arrow to come back. Once they have him there, it'll be good. But I'm going to go Rabbitohs again. I just think the Roosters, they'll be up for it. They'll be up for a bit of revenge after last year's semi. But it's really hard for me to see a Roosters team, all connecting, all on the same page, all able to keep their heads on straight as well, because I haven't seen it from guys like Victor Radley and, Warrior-Hargraves can, blow a gasket as well. It's just a little bit too much for the Rabbitohs at the moment. I think that they were still good last week, even though they lost. So I'm going to go Rabbitohs.
Yeah, I think you're right with that one. I think the Rabbitohs should get this done. Just looking at the forward pack, I mean, you get Tavita Totola back. He is such a big one for them because Shaq Mitchell's been playing about 50 minutes a game. And if you can bring him back to about 30 minutes, he's such an impact weapon there. Hame Sele, Davey Moale, they're all the same kind of guy. Latrell also, he looked a bit hurt in that last game too. So he's going to come out fired up. But the Chalks be fired up too. I think this is the game of the round every time these teams play. And it's going to be the same thing. So real coin toss in this one. Just pick who you want to pick. I've grabbed Lindsay Collins in a lot of fantasy leagues, by the way. He's sneaky because he played 77 minutes last week. He only scored 46. That game was pretty tough for fantasy, but his minutes they won't stay at 77, but he's a guy you can keep an eye on for fantasy. We just got a question come through. Are we confident in Para this week or no? We went through Para before. They're a bit dodgy. I'm tipping Parramatta. Miles isn't. But really, until Madison and Lane come back, Parramatta are going to struggle, especially on defense and the edges. Let's jump to another game here. So next one here, we've got
I was about to say, staying on this game just really quickly with the Roosters. Brandon Smith, do you keep him, sell him, bench him? What are we thinking at the moment?
Brandon Smith.
Got to buy next week. Yeah, I think if he fails this week, you really got to think about selling him, right?
Brandon Smith's out. Like, it's just been a myriad of injuries and, back injury and the concussion and not looking great in that Roosters team. I don't think that he was a bad guy to start with. So if you start with him, don't feel bad if you start with Brandon Smith or if you draft Brandon Smith. But it's too many injuries, too many problems. He's going to be carrying that back injury, and I think there's a rib injury as well going forward. So you just got to get rid of it. Get rid of that headache. He's going to lose cash. If he starts looking good again, you can bring him back in because he fits at hooker and at middle. So, I wouldn't worry too much. But yeah, get rid of Brandon Smith ASAP. If you're looking at trading, like if you're one of the people who got Ilias, for example, Ilias to Preston, and then Preston at the Dogs, by the way, not Preston Campbell. We've got a few comments there on that. And then you go Brandon Smith to an elite player like a Reece Robson or a Damien Cook or a Harry Grant or a Reed Marnie if you need a hooker.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I was watching that Dogs Melbourne game, Dogs Storm game the other day, and I talked up Jacob Preston right before he scored. And a couple of my mates said, "Who?" So I mean, we haven't said it enough, Jacob Preston is the guy's name. He plays for the Bulldogs. Get him in your side as quick as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Keegan's coming through with some questions. Who to swap him for? Keegan, if you got the cash, those top line hookers we talked about, let us know in the comments if you need a hooker or if you can go anywhere. Because my view is that you get Preston for one of your mid-range guys, and you trade Brandon Smith to a top flight hooker. So I think you can't go wrong with Damien Cook, personally. Don't go below Reed Marnie. Below that, it's a bit murky.
Damien Cook, Harry Grant. Reed's also a stellar option, or Reece Robson.
Yeah. All right, next game here, we got the Titans and the Storm. I know you, Captain Reed Keeks. Titans and the Storm. So looking at this game, everyone's sort of talking about the Titans being an upset here. I reckon the Storm have got a few guys back, and they're very sneaky to blow the Titans out here. Just because you look at this team, you go Tui Kamika coming back. You've got Tarek Sims coming back on the bench, and you've got Justin Olam coming back on the edge. And this team leaked like a sieve last week, but they are three guys who hit very hard coming back into this defensive line. So I don't think we're going to see the full flight Storm yet because, there's still no Pappenhausen, who's an absolute legend. There's still no Cam Munster, but I think the Storm get this done reasonably comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. They love playing in Queensland as well. Don't tend to lose too many games up there. I think on the back of copping an absolute spray from Bellamy as well will definitely help. And no doubt they've been hitting the tackling pads all week as a result of that. The other one I'd like to kind of just flag here is Jonah Pezzett is on the bench. Jonah Pezzett, nice young guy, played under 19s for Queensland last year. Phenomenal raps on a young kid. No, I'm a bit annoyed that he didn't get the spot over Wishart, but I suppose Wishart, he's been around the club for a little while. But he's not a 6, but can fill in a little bit there. Jarome Hughes tried very hard last week, and Eli Katoa was also phenomenal. Another guy that we flagged in our fantasy pickups, a guy that you rate quite highly.
Eli Katoa. Let me comment on this because Eli Katoa, I've been an Eli Katoa truther. Everyone was saying, he only scored 39 in round 1. Blah, blah, blah. Like, he's a freak. He scores points for fun. He is just such a raw talent. I'll tell you what, when this Storm team starts firing, Eli Katoa, he's still one of my picks for top try scoring back rower in the game this year. He hasn't done it yet. It hasn't looked good yet, but give it time. Give the combinations a bit of time to flow.
Bro,
give it time, but
he made three line breaks the other day.
He's a freak. Got a question from Keegan about Olam for a double. How does he do in fantasy? I wouldn't get Olam in fantasy. Olam's priced where Olam's priced. So when you're looking at these fantasy guys, you either want to get a guy who's the absolute top of his position, or you want to get a guy who's at the very bottom, cheapest, and a bit undiscovered, or you want to get someone in the middle whose role has changed. So Lindsay Collins, for example, is one I talk about a bit. his role is changing, that he's getting more minutes. The Roosters have less middle forwards, and he's coming off an injury season as well. But with a guy like Justin Olam, he's priced where he's priced because he is who he is. The Storm aren't going to be a significantly better team this year. He's not going to change much this year. I think he's going to get okay output from him. I think you're better off just going for Alamotti or one of these other center wings, even like a Hamaso at 400k, who we talked about too. But you get one of those cheap guys. One guy I'm liking.
What about I know? Yeah, the Titans for me. I think Chris Randall is an underrated guy. He especially in the Supercoach kind of fantasy game, he always comes in and makes about 50 tackles every single time he plays. So he's going to be pretty good this week if you can find a cheap guy and then move on the next week, especially in draft, because he's going to be on the waiver wire, Chris Randall. And he'll probably, just judging by the bench that they've picked, he'll probably play 80 minutes as well. The other one is Brian Kelly. He comes in there instead of Jojo Fafita, and Sami moves back to the wing. Brian Kelly has been pretty good in Supercoach in seasons past. Had a bit of a down year last year, but I think that's only because the Titans decided to have a bit of a down year in all attacking facets. So,
yeah, if you're in a Supercoach draft, let's come in on that, because if you're in a draft, Supercoach draft, fantasy draft, Brian Kelly is sneaky because these Titans edges have been exploding so far. Brian Kelly is just a bit of a monster. I mean, as long as he doesn't get dropped, the Titans sort of love to drop these guys who are offensive juggernauts, kind of liabilities on D. They did with Mazu last year as well. But yeah, Brian Kelly, go grab him if you're in a draft and he's on the waiver wires. Just got a question here on Tino's brother off the bench. I don't think there's the minutes there, personally, for him to do too much. I think the guy who's interesting off the bench, and he's not interesting for Classic, he's only interesting for draft, is Aaron Clark. He's a free agent in a lot of leagues. So if you can go get Aaron Clark, he covers hooker. I've got him in a few of my teams right now. He's not too far away from big minutes. And if Chris Randall is as underwhelming as he usually is, then Aaron Clark's going to get a lot of hooker minutes as well. Let's go through here. So we've sort of talked about these guys here. Next team, Cowboys and Warriors. This one is not too interesting for fantasy for me. I don't know.
It is for me in one way.
Is it on the Warriors fullback?
So no, it's the Cowboys fullback spot. So for those who don't know, I'm a very avid Cowboys fan. I watch a lot of these young guys come through. Tom Chester, if you want to take a punt on a fullback this week, your fullback's not working, you got maybe Dane Laurie. Dane Laurie's out this week. You got Chance playing fullback. He's out this week. Take an absolute punt on Tommy Chester, especially against a team like the Warriors who can leak a few points. He won't disappoint you, is all I'm going to say. He so light on his feet, very good footwork, plays a bit more of a 5'8" type fullback, so you're going to be seeing that passing element come in as well. So expect a couple of try assists. Pretty strong on kick returns as well. And I'm actually really glad that he got the spot instead of guys like Brendan Elliott or a Ben Hampton. There, it means they're showing face in the younger guys. And I think aside from that, we move over to Tane on the other side for the Warriors. Not a lot known about him.
I know nothing about him. So look, if anyone knows, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation.
You don't even want to try and pronounce it, do you?
Tuapiki? Anyway, look, Tane. Tuapiki? Warriors fullback. Yeah, look, if anyone knows anything about him, look, drop it in the comments. I'm going to be checking out the highlights before we make our fantasy video, but he could be an interesting one as well. We've got two debut fullbacks here. We've got two teams who have been very strong through the forwards as well. You've got Barnett coming in for Jackson Ford. If you have Ford in your fantasy teams, that's a rough blow. I always thought that Josh Curran was going to be the threat to Ford's minutes, so I didn't end up getting him and just got really lucky because of that HIA, which is sad for him. But yeah, Barnett's come in. Curran's still on the bench. If you have Ford, I don't think he gets back in to a big minute role in this Warriors team, so I think you might want to look at trading him out instead of keeping a dead roster spot. looking at the Cowboys, Miles, it's a good side. It's a good side. Are you confident that they can go to the grand final this year?
Well, we're going to be without probably two of our stalwart players from last year for the next couple of weeks, in Scott Drinkwater and Peter Hiku.
But isn't Tom
But
Chester
I think
the Messiah?
Sorry?
Isn't Tom Chester the Messiah?
I wouldn't say the Messiah, but I'd say he won't disappoint. I'm just glad to see him get a go for the next 3 weeks or whatever it is. I'm hoping he can make the most of his opportunity. And we saw Scott Drinkwater do that to the Hammer last week. Maybe Tommy can put a bit more pressure on Scott Drinkwater, maybe up his game a little bit, because it was a little bit disappointing for my Cowboys the other day. I think just a couple of really silly errors cost them the game. And, I think we were right up in that game until Scott Drinkwater got sent to the bin. But yeah, our forward pack is still quite strong, and I wouldn't, be surprised if we put 13 plus on this Warriors team.
I'll throw one at you here too, because Sean Johnson is enjoying a career revival right now. He's been on fire so far this year, and look, it's been a bit rocks and diamonds, but I think everyone's forgetting that even prime Sean Johnson was rocks and diamonds. Like that's who he always has been, and we're getting diamonds back. We had a bit of rocks, exclusively rocks last year, so it's good to see him back and flying. I still think that Metcalf could re-enter this Warriors team down the track, and I think Charles Nichols-Klokstad did enough in round 1 to cement himself as the fullback of the future. But I would like to
give Martin.
Yeah, I'd like to give Metcalf a go over Tamari Martin, depending on how the Warriors are going in about a month's time. But yeah, we could see that. Oh, one other guy, Murata Nukore, freak. He's flying. Great signing.
Yeah, ferocious, isn't he, as well? Like, he just has a really good motor. And we saw that at Parramatta. But he's really a Mr. Fix-It guy for Parramatta, whereas, you give him a solid starting spot. And I actually think potentially with the new CBA getting sorted out, I don't think the price tag that they put on him is that bad at all. Some guys like Papali'i went for 650 to the Tigers, and we got Murata Niukore going for 600 to the Warriors. It's not a bad signing, considering some of the second rowers that are going around at the moment.
Yeah, he's set some serious intensity with them, and the Warriors have been a really strong forward pack so far this year. They just need to figure out a bit of that.
I actually think this game. Yeah, I actually think this game will be pretty close.
It should be. Next game up, we got the Broncos and the Dragons. So we've got a few Dragons supporters in the comments on TikTok. Before we go into this, I've got a couple of competing ideas here. How good is Hopgood from Brocky Boo? Stock Standard, how good were the Sharks round 2? Look, Stock, I'm wearing my para jersey, so I wasn't very happy about your Sharks, but, enjoy the win, I guess. And then up the Dragons on TikTok. Give him a follow if you don't already. He's up the Mighty V. The Dragons versus the Broncos. I'm going to start us off. I just think the Broncos keep on rolling here. I think the Broncos were so explosive and so quick in attack, and I just can't see the Dragons keeping up with the age of their forward pack. So I think the Broncos blitz this one, but you're on the Dragons here, and anyone on TikTok, jump across to YouTube. We got the link in the bio if you want to see this with all the visuals on it too. Yeah, Miles, why are you on the Dragons here?
I really liked what I saw the other day. I think it came from the young guys. The young guys really stepped up. Like Tyrell Sloan out the back was really coming into his own and given the confidence to be able to go hard at certain things. I think we've seen him be a bit sheepish in the last couple of years and not knowing really when to own those moments where he should inject himself or use his speed. But that was really impressive. And for me, out of both teams, I just think that the outside backs of the Dragons are going to have a really good start to their sets. Like Ravalawa was outstanding last week, and Fierney isn't a smaller guy either. So I think the Broncos are going to have a bit of trouble with that. But I don't know. I just think that The Dragons showed enough for me to say that they wanted to prove everyone wrong in saying that they were going to be the wooden spooners this year, and I tipped that as well. So, good on the Dragons for coming out and proving everyone, to shut their mouth, really.
Dragons were hot round one. They were really hot. We got a bunch of comments too, so I'm just going to hit these before I give my views here. We've got, Brocky, Dragons beat the Broncos, put my house on it. I wonder if you have a house. Up Dragons, up the Viney, Red V. Stock with Warriors to win round 3. We've got a question what's going on with the Storm. Storm have a bunch of guys coming back. Kamika Mika, Tarek Sims, Justin Olam, very solid defensive players coming back. So the Storm will be much better this week. Got a few comments around Mitch Moses being the GOAT. I totally agree. Totally unbiased on that. Stock with Storm, Newcastle and Tigers gone. Storm are coming back. Newcastle and Tigers are sinking right now. And Brock with You Look Like Ray Stone. I love that. Go back and watch him score the match winner against the Storm. And that's the Ray Stone I want to look like. Stock with Redcliffe. 3 straight for the Finns. Yeah, it's looking likely. But their favourites, do they struggle? There's a question around that. And then a lot of questions around the Eels as well. But let's go into this. So look, I think that everything you said about the Dragons is true about the Broncos too. They've just got a bunch of guys who can run the ball really well. Both teams kind of have similar strengths and weaknesses, actually, if you look at them. They both got really experienced elite number 7s. They both got kind of out of position hookers, really young, explosive fullbacks who have been known to be a little dodgy on defense. Very strong try-scoring wingers, very powerful ball-running centers. It's just in the forward pack, especially in the middle.
Prone to an offload locks as well. Probably would give Paddy Carrigan the edge over Jack Bird in the tackling department. But, I think that they match up pretty well. And I think that this match could be a bit closer than a lot of people are expecting. I think I'm actually pretty sure that the Dragons are the massive outsiders in this game as well.
Yeah, they're huge outsiders. But look, the Broncos are just too strong in the forwards. That's the thing. Like I don't see how the Dragons compete in the forward pack here. I just think Pat Carrigan, Payne Haas, Jensen's been really good. Flegler, Palacia as well, but they're just going to run straight over the top. And then actually, one guy I will compliment here for the Dragons, Murdoch Masilla. He didn't do much for fantasy, and look, don't go get him for fantasy or Supercoach, but he passed the eye test for me. I thought he had a really strong game. He ran the ball with a lot of intent, and he created a lot of space for the players around him. So he was a signing.
Nearly scored as well.
Yeah, but he looked like a bit of a what are the Dragons doing kind of signing, and he's been good so far.
No, definitely. Not his usual position too. Back row. I didn't expect him to play there to start the season, but good to see him get a bit of a run. Considering the Warriors last year didn't really utilize him at all. The other one, it's good to see young guys get their debut, and Toby Couchman was pretty good when he came on, but I wouldn't get him for fantasy or anything like that. But I enjoy seeing young kids get their debut. Sad about his HIA, but I'm sure he'll come back this week, and it's good to see him named again. One other guy that I thought was absolutely outstanding for the Dragons was Blake Lowry. He's just offloads galore at the moment. He's really kind of making a bit of a claim to push his way into that New South Wales Blues squad. I don't know if that's a bit of an early crow, but Blake Lowry could definitely be a guy that is considered for New South Wales at this point.
No. I just absolutely think no. We've got a question here from Will. Aren't you the editor on TikTok?
Hate it.
Go to the.casual.athlete on TikTok. That's us there. Posted a funny little Armdo video today, actually. That's sort of popping off right now. Ever been told you look like Tim Manabro? Absolutely. That's the second Parramatta player. Anyone who gets the third one that I get told wins a prize. Then we've got thoughts on Blake for fantasy. No, definitely not. He's exactly the definition of one of those mid-range guys. He could pop up and down a little bit through the season, but I wouldn't get Blake Lowry. Of these teams, who's interesting? Pat Carrigan is a bit undervalued. He's an elite tier gun. He's priced probably about 5 points below what he is. Payne Haas is top of the line, so you're paying big money for him. You could make a case for Reece Walsh at fullback in a new situation. He lost goal kicking, which is why we're always a bit tough on him. I've got a few more guesses here on the appearance. Have you ever been told you look like Fui Fui Moi Moi? I wish I looked like Fui Fui Moi Moi. They're not para. I can see Mark Nichols. I love the Nichols call. It's not who I was thinking of. Another guess for Josh Hodgson. Not the guy I'm thinking of, but I love that one too. All good-looking, intentionally bald men who definitely chose this life and didn't have it forced on them. But yeah, no, I just think Broncos get this done though. I mean, from the Dragons side, is there anyone interested in fantasy? Maybe you can make a case for Tyrell Sloan. I think he's prone to a sub 20 score though. That's risky. You can look at Lomax.
Ravalawa broke a fair few tackles and ran for a lot of meters last week, but you're right. He's very hit and miss as well, especially if he's not getting those, attacking opportunities where he's got the ball in his hands. You could make a case for Jack Bird for the dual position, being a center and a middle. That's the one I would look at, and
that's hot. Yeah.
Ben Hunt probably a little bit lower price as well.
Miles, your tip's looking good. Up the Dragons is thrown in. Ben Hunt's never lost to the Broncos. Is that true? I'm trying to think. Like, they've both been pretty dodgy teams over the last few years. Go check that on Miles while I keep sort of rolling here.
Yeah.
And then, look, Keegan's got Sloan. Yeah, Sloan's a decent one to have. Is he a current player? No, previous player from Parramatta. We've got Sterlo as a guess. Royce Hunt. None of those guys. And a lot of para banter. Let's stop shit talking Parramatta. All right, Parramatta, we're just sort of dropping the stocks, hustling the league before we go on a run. So don't you worry about that.
Okay. So I have looked it up. And Ben Hunt has got 8 wins and 0 losses against Brisbane.
Ben Hunt, 8-0 against the Broncos. All right, I'm making that a TikTok later. Don't spoil it for the people who are on the list here, but Ben Hunt, 8-0 against the Broncos. That's up the Dragons. Thank you for that. That's juicy. That's really juicy. Wow.
Love that. Wow. They're literally the only team in the league he's never lost to.
That's crazy. Well, I might take the Dragons then. That's insane. Up the Dragons, he's too fucking good. Blue Water goes Nathan Highmarsh, Trios legend. Yeah, it is huge, Keeks. Let's roll in here. So we've got Dogs, Tigers we've talked about. And we've got the Raiders and the Sharks to round things out. So this is our last one we're going to talk about. And then might have a quick look at some fantasy and Supercoach stuff after this as well. Raiders and Sharks is a weird game. I think if Hines was playing, we'd all be saying, the Sharks will probably get this done. But without Hines, I don't know, the Raiders have just not been convincing so far. They've been competitive. Like, they lost by 1 to the Cowboys.
You just don't
get the Dolphins.
You just don't like them because they beat Para.
I just don't like this Sharks spine on paper. It's working, but on paper, Will Kennedy, Matt Moylan, Braden Trindle, and Blake Brayley
shouldn't work.
It shouldn't, but I guess they've got such explosive edge runners, and the pack's doing well, and they're not bad players. But if you want an upset, I don't mind the Raiders here. Oh, and we got the guess, Blake Ferguson. There we go. That's the other one I cop. So nice call.
Hey.
Yeah, who are you tipping here, Miles? And are you confident?
Oh, yeah, I'm going Sharks. I've seen nothing from the Raiders that indicates that they'll be returning to winning ways anytime soon. I still don't believe in Seb Chris at the back. I think they bundled an absolute an absolute guaranteed win against the Dolphins as well. It was their type of game. It's wet game, and they still managed to get someone sent to the bin at some point as well, and that was disappointing from Hudson Young. But I just think that the Sharks team has so much depth, and it's something that I talked about in our preview of the Sharks early in the season. Their depth is outstanding. Their reserve grade side is 2-0 as well to start the season, the Newtown Jets. And, they just have these guys that keep coming up, keep turning up, and that's why, Trindle's been so impressive this year, and I'm actually not being surprised about it.
We've got Brocky and
you're right, though. It is a bit of
back in Canberra, though. We've got a bit of a
boring.
Boring. Nah, look, everyone's back in Canberra. I reckon they sneak this one. One thing I'm going to throw at you, actually, with the Sharks is Iro. Iro is in reserve grade right now, and he can play center, wing, fullback. How long can the Sharks keep him in reserve grade before he has to go somewhere else? So I'm wearing my para gear right now. We desperately need an outside back because I'm not saying we should drop these guys, but I was very disappointed by Wanga Blake and Bailey Simonson last week. And I think Wanga's shown enough over the last few years to keep his spot. But Bailey Simonson, I think there's some fundamental things he needs to work on to sort of be a winger for a team that wins the comp. So do you think Para could get Iro off the Sharks?
We signed to the Sharks till the end of 2024. So right now, you'd be looking at talking to him in November. And I think that if I'm a team that's lacking outside backs like Para are, like I think the Knights will be when Dom Young leaves, it's definitely something I would consider. He's only 22 and he's probably going to get better from there. New South Wales Cup Player of the Year last year. So he's absolutely killing it in reserve grade, and it's tough to see him every week. I think he just wants to play for the Sharks because they put so much effort into him, and I appreciate the loyalty. But for me, if I was KL Iro, I would go somewhere else.
He needs to go to Parramatta. Parramatta, be a starting winger. No, genuinely, like starting either Parramatta or Souths. Souths need a winger as well. Like, just go find your way onto one of these teams in a minimum contract, starting winger, play deep into the finals, and go from there. Because there's nothing here from Cronulla. He's not going to get in over Sione Katoa. He's not going to get in over Multalo. They've got Connor Tracy in reserves as well, who is ahead of him. Connor Tracy's another one I'd take at Parramatta, by the way. Like the Sharks' outside back depth is insane. And I think these guys need to start looking for a
They had Lockie Miller too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No wonder they got rid of Lockie Miller. And also Kay Dykes is there as well, but he's out for the season. He's got an ACL injury. But they're just stacked, like in the outside backs as far as depth goes. And then you get guys coming off the bench that could still probably start as well. Guys like Royce Hunt. I think Jack Williams is a starting caliber player. You got Oregon Kathusi there. But fuck me, like Cameron McInnes is still coming off the bench. Like, he's probably one of the best bench rotations. Right. Yeah, Marweni Harodi.
He's good. Hey, I got a question then, because we got a question coming in on the YouTube questions here. Higgins asking thoughts on Whiten going back to fullback for the Raiders.
No.
I don't think he's got the speed to be a fullback anymore.
No.
Yeah, I think
he made a lot of really dumb decisions when he was at fullback as well. Like it almost like the stupidity crept into his game a little bit when he was playing there. I can distinctly remember a game where he threw the ball to Ewan Aitken in Golden Point and they scored a Golden Point try out at Cogra. And it might have been one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And it just, I think getting in 5'8", he's also a good defender in the front line. So you kind of want someone there at 6, and then you kind of worry about your fullback if the front line gets pierced. But if they've already got someone in there who can defend, then don't chuck in a guy who hasn't really got much first grade experience. Maybe I think they're looking at putting Brad Schneider in there. Is that what we're weighing up here? Whiten to fullback, Schneider to 6?
I don't even know what they do.
Makes zero sense to me. But Whiten, he wasn't a good fullback. He needed to always play 5'8" or centre. And he's in.
We got a few comments right now saying that he'd be more mature now. Stock's coming with that. We've got a lot of shit talk on Parramatta as well coming through on TikTok, which I am not tolerating, guys. Para's going to win the comp. So prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. You know, like the Cowboys started their comp winning year in 2015, 0 wins, 3 losses. And they surged through and they won the comp.
Oh, okay.
So until we lose more than 3 games in a row.
So the Tigers are going to win the comp.
Tigers could win the comp. I mean, yeah, I'm sticking with Parramatta, but yeah, it's a pretty open comp. Like, look, genuinely though, Para look pretty dodgy, but it is a pretty genuinely open competition right now. So you look at this ladder, and Penrith were great last week, but they're a bit dodgy. Souths are a bit dodgy. The Roosters are fragile, and we'll talk about that all preseason.
Yeah, Cowboys are dodgy as well.
Yeah, Cowboys are dodgy. Sharks are dodgy. Like, and when we say dodgy, like they're good teams, but they're not Penrith last year, who were just so far and away the best. So
dominant, yeah.
Good question coming through. Best trade out options for Brendan Smith in fantasy. Let's go to that. So let's go to fantasy right now. So we've got fantasy here. Look, these are the guys who have risen in price the most last week. It's probably a good area to start the conversation. For Brendan Smith, look, we talk about Preston a lot. He's 287K. He went up 55 grand last week. You need to find a way to get him into your team. Just finding my positioning here. Yeah, find a way to get him into your team. He's going to go up a lot of value, and he's going to keep getting minutes. So get Preston, and the other option is to just get guys who are top of the line guns as well. But let's go through these. Look, some of these don't need to be talked about in too much depth, and this is sort of my preparation for the fantasy video that I'm about to record with Biz in about an hour's time. So Hopgood, superstar. He only played 65 minutes, and that could reduce a little as the season goes along with Madison coming back and potentially playing in the middle. But he's still that guy. He's a freak. He offloads a lot. Cardi, if you haven't got Cardi now, it's too late. Don't go get Cardi anymore. He won't keep his spot long term, I don't think. I think Dury's ahead of Cardi at Parramatta. Karaz, you love Karaz, Miles. Do you think that at the price that he's at now, he's worth buying? It's risky, right?
I think for the if he was a dual position, I'd definitely give it. If he could play center, but I think when you've got like much more consistent winger fullbacks over the years that that they're going to get their hands on the ball more, they're going to break a few tackles, they're going to have a few try assists, then that is probably a bit more of a better option. A guy that we were talking about potentially could explode this year, like Reece Walsh, is another guy that I would look at. But then if you've got guys like Teddy, I think Pappenhausen when he comes back as well could also pop off depending on how he comes back. Yeah,
there's some guys there.
Yeah, with Karaz, if you've got him, see how much money he can make you like already.
I don't think anyone has him.
And then kind of cash out when you need to.
If anyone has Karaz, let us know. We've got a bunch of comments too going through. Jason David, legend, up the Bulldogs. Stock, Tigers, game was dreadful. Brendan saying Penrith not in first gear. Penrith won't get out of first gear.
No.
I still don't think they make the top 4. I think last week was a great game for them, but I think they're dodgy. We got Hacks, the Roosters being the best. Weiji, up the Doggies. Stock, Blake Brayley, 80-minute superstar. A bunch of guys keen for that Doggies game. Brendan asks, do you see Melbourne in the top 8? I still think Melbourne are in the top 8. We'll talk about this one, but Kamika Mika comes back. Tarek Sims comes back. Justin Erlum comes back. And that defensive leaking is gone because those 3 guys all hit hard. You look at Felice Kafusi at the Dolphins. 1 guy hitting hard makes a big difference. 3 of them coming in making that difference. they're going to be fine, Melbourne. They get Pappenhausen back at some point, we hope too. So Melbourne will be in the 8. Whether they go deep is a bit of an injury question. But yeah, they're good. Let's go into fantasy here, though. Back into fantasy. So Mark Nichols. I didn't like Mark Nichols last week, and he's come out and scored another massive score. So I feel like maybe we're wrong about Mark Nichols. Look, if you want Mark Nichols, go get Mark Nichols. He's 533,000. He's getting the minutes. There's no reason why he wouldn't keep the minutes he's getting. But yeah, also be prepared that it could sort of flop potentially. I mean, let's check his stats here. So minutes played, he's playing 50 minutes a game. He scored 75 and 48. He's at that 560,000 mark. Miles, do you think Mark Nichols is going to keep that performance up? In 3 words or less? Yes, no, maybe.
I just don't see anyone replacing him to be able to take over. So, yes.
Yeah. Question here from the Dragons. Would you do Brenton Smith and Tanner Boyd for Lockie Ilias and Trent Loiero? Do not touch Lockie Ilias. Do not touch Lockie Ilias. If you want someone sneaky, go get Schuster. And Dylan Kahui just commented that as well. But go get Schuster, right? You're going to get him for minimum price. And then you can get someone better than Loiero as well. Because Loiero, he's risen in price a bit already. It's probably a little late. It's a bit dodgy with Tarek Sims. I mean, he's probably going to play middle, but I would go
Preston, right?
Boyd. Yeah, Preston too. I mean, Schuster, Preston, you can get them both. You give Tanner Boyd another week, maybe. Yeah. Another question.
He had a shocker last week.
This is a much better trade. Brandon Smith and Tanner Boyd for Tohu Harris and Isaiah Katoa. Much stronger. I still think go get Preston from the Dogs over Isaiah Katoa. Straight up, easy choice. I think Preston's your number one option. I think you can wait a week on Schuster if you really want to, but Schuster's another guy to get or keep him in mind for next week. And Tohu Harris he's playing massive minutes. So, yeah, he's a great one to get. Rolling through, Trindle is kind of sneaky, but Nico Hines comes back in round 4. So don't fall for Trindle. Cheekham is going well, but Jairo is back pretty soon. Don't fall for Cheekham. Shaq Mitchell is the one that I haven't got him in any leagues, but people have him, and he's playing great. He's a middle forward. Souths, they need middle forwards, and he's playing about 50 minutes a game, and he's playing phenomenal footy. So if you want Shaq Mitchell, go get Shaq Mitchell. I'm not going to get him, I don't think, but it's not a bad choice. Hamaso, 450K. Center and fullback there. It's juicy. Lily, my friend from school, has gone to the Eels team. Who's your mate from school? I'd be keen to know who that is. If you've got any inside gossip on whether they're a good pickup for fantasy, that's what I want to know. Rolling through, Josh King. Kamika Mika comes back. I don't think he keeps the huge minutes that he was playing originally. I think he's priced around where he's going to be, maybe a little underpriced. Egan for Supercoach. He's the guy who scored a bunch of tries. He's had try assists. He's been really good. Eli Katoa, I still think at 497K, if you do not have Eli Katoa, you go get Eli Katoa because he could be a top flight back rower this year. Like we're talking, I think he could peak in the 700s. I don't think he'll stay there in the 700s. So he's still probably about 200K underpriced for me. But I think he'll peak around 750 at some point because it's just gone a bit of a run where some of these runs convert to tries. But he will have those lower games. So just don't panic when he has those low games. Kennedy at 420K. He scored 3 tries in that last game. I wouldn't touch Kennedy.
Yeah, Gula, I wouldn't touch him either.
Yeah. Yeah, Emre Gula. Josh Papali will come back. If you started with Pasami Solo, he was good to start the year. He's been pretty good, so you can just get the cash from him, but he won't keep it up. Don't trade him in. I've got a question here. Katoa or Tohu Harris?
Jeez, yeah.
I think you get Katoa this week because, I mean, look, Katoa went up 41k last week. Tohu went up 38 though, so they're both going up in price. Who else? Send us your trades, Keegan, because I want to know if we can find a way to get both those guys. I reckon they're probably a higher priority than some other guys people are looking at. So send us those trades and we'll look at them.
The other thing you could probably say about Tohu Harris is he's not as highly priced as some of the other guys that are in his position. You know, guys like Carrigan, Cam Murray, these elite guys. I still consider Tohu Harris to be in that tier as well, and you're getting him for about 50k less at this point in time, and he's still probably going to make money for you.
Yeah, only if he's playing those minutes though, and he is right now. But does Curran keep playing such small minutes? I don't know.
Well,
I think Curran's pretty good. Yeah, so
I think they're lost on Curran. Yeah,
I'm worried about Curran. Yeah, I would take Curran at Parramatta in a heartbeat as well. He's another one that I would poach. Joshy.
You're taking everyone at Parramatta, apparently.
I want us to sign some players.
Josh Curran.
We are such a stupid team, though. Like, genuinely, like Parramatta sends Nathan Brown to the Roosters for peanuts. Why not do a trade for Paul Momorowski? Genuinely, like, why not get Paul Momorowski?
Because he's looking out.
They don't want Momorowski at the Roosters, right? Why not? Why not get Momorowski? He's a guy. He's not the best center in the comp, but he's a first grader who can score a try. He can catch a high ball. Defensively has some questions, but he would slot in on the wing for us, or at center we move Wonga to the wing straight away. So I just don't think we're proactive enough at Parramatta, especially in the mid-season moves. And we gave the Roosters a player. We should want to get someone. NRL College Bra Campbelltown. He's also, I hope, a Parramatta fan or just taking the piss. But let's get rolling here. So Solo, if you got him, keep him. If you don't have him, don't rush him in. Johnson. Do you like Johnson, Miles? I don't. I wouldn't get Johnson. I think there's enough other guys.
Look. I will say I have Johnson in Supercoach at the moment. Do I plan to keep him there long term? Probably not.
Yeah.
So that tells you everything you need to know.
Also, the question here. So Capewell going for Preston, phenomenal trade. Capewell to Preston's really good.
Yeah.
Then Brandon Smith for Tohu or Eli Katoa. Eli Katoa could destroy the Titans this week. You know, and he's still 497. Okay, like I would get Eli Katoa this week. I think Tohu will probably outscore Eli Katoa just on odds, but yeah, I'd go Eli Katoa. It's up to you though. Like I'd go Eli Katoa this week. I just think he's got more potential for price rise. Tohu's a guy who give it a week because Mitch Barnett comes into the starting team. Give it a week to see if Curran does anything to his minutes. Get Katoa. No. Next one here, up Dragons. Did you guys have a bad fantasy week like everyone else? I had a mixed bag. My classic team had Talau, who got hurt, and Brandon Smith, who got hurt, and a bunch of other guys. But I'm in a draft with some other creators for Supercoach. And we've got the best team in the comp right here for Supercoach. So, Tyrell Sloan scored me 80, Dom Young, 90, Will Kennedy, 106, Sam Walker, Eli Katoa, both 90, Soph Solomon, 74. So that team is a 20-player, 20-creator league. So it's really thin, but everyone just popped off there. So bit of a mixed bag. Some of the draft teams went really well, but, some of the classic teams really struggled this week. How about you, Moss? You got a win, didn't you?
I got a win in our 12-man league. In the 20-man creators comp, though, unfortunately, I was beaten this week, which didn't help a lot.
Also, got some comments.
Just had a few.
Jonah Perez, Pezzett, going to pop off on debut. Miles was talking him up too. Camera operator, not Mike Stocklasser. Then we got No Dragons. Score prediction for Dogs Tigers. I'm going to go the Bulldogs, get it done. 28 to 16. I think the Tigers will show a bit of fight and attack, even though their roster's looking weak. How about your Moss score prediction?
22-8. I'm going to say the Tigers get out to an 8-0 lead, and then the Dogs run them down and take over.
Yeah. And then just on minutes for Katoa there too. Not worried about those minutes. Bellamy gives his back rows 80 minutes. I don't think you have to worry about Katoa's minutes in general. If he played 60 minutes, it's not the worst thing. Like, he's a very active guy with the ball in hand. So just a question on TikTok, who are we talking to? We're on the YouTube live stream, so links in the bio there. Feel free to join us on YouTube. There's a couple of us on the call. You're just seeing me, but we've got a visual and everything as well, so it's a much more holistic experience on YouTube. We'll keep rolling through here with these price rises, so I'm going to go a bit quicker here. Alamotti, go get Alamotti if you don't have Alamotti. Most people have Alamotti, but definitely go get Alamotti. Ravalawa, if you think St. George are going to fire this year, you can get Ravalawa. I personally am not going to make space for him. Then we've got, he's not playing. Asako, 488k. Don't touch Asako. Leo Thompson will start this week, I think, at lock for the Knights. I still wouldn't make space for him at 417. Jerome Hughes, super pod. He kills it when Munster's out. So if you want a gun at 704,000, go get Jerome Hughes. He's juicy. There are some better guys, though, I think, to get this week. So, yeah. Stefano Tokomanu, 430k. There are some high priority guys, but you can't go wrong with him, really. I think he'll do well. Junior Polo, 639k. He's just not a full-on gun. I don't think so. I wouldn't get Junior Polo. Blake Laurie is the same, 566. He's priced at what he is. Murata Niokore, middle and edge, which is nice, but 550. There are better guys to get. But if you do have him, keep him. Hayes Perham at 332. I don't think Hayes has shown enough, me personally, to rush him in if you don't have him. If you do have him, keep him. He's doing okay. Good click for the Dogs, and they've got a nice, easy fixture.
I've got him in fantasy as well. Kind of the guy that you've got to sit on for a little bit just to see how the Dogs perform, because while he had a stellar week last week, was very good at the back. He did make a couple of really bad mistakes. So he's got to get that out of his game. But I think after that, should be the player that we all expect to be.
Yeah. We've got Keegan in the comments here. Need to get those photos done for fantasy. I totally agree. Where are the photos? I'm actually going to be in NRL.com's office tomorrow talking fantasy. So I'll ask them about the photos and let you know. Then we've got Egan Butcher, another 40 or so week risk going for buy. Is he a sell? Egan Butcher hasn't done that much wrong, but I don't think he's got the upside to hold on to. If you are looking for a player to sell, to buy Preston or Schuster or someone like that, and then to buy a top tier gun, Egan Butcher is the perfect example of that kind of player. So, yeah, I would flick him across. Dan Mills comes in, Knight supporter here. Lockie Miller, has he impressed you? We do MVP voting for each game. We do our own sort of Dally M kind of setup. And Lockie Miller has polled points in both games so far, even in a losing team. So, yeah, Lockie Miller, he's been excellent. Great work rate. A lot of hands on the ball. If the Knights could start attacking a bit better, he'd be really on everyone's radar. We'll keep rolling through here. Look, Sammy Walker, I think you're a bit late on Sam Walker. I think Jerome Hughes is better than Sam Walker as a pickup right now. Yep. Jacob Little, don't do it. Garner, surprised everyone. I said hold Garner. Everyone else was saying sell. He went well last week. He could have scored 100 in fantasy if he held the ball over the try line a couple of times. There is some risk for Garner, though, that he could be dropped from that spot, because while he did score well for fantasy, he had some pretty bad mistakes in that game. So they have the bye. They might go make some moves. Just keep an eye on that for Garner. But at 495k, I think he's still value. Loyero, 437k. If you got him, keep him. If you don't have him, he's great. He's probably not my number one priority. Is Cleary a sell? That's a big question.
I would at this point, just because the way we've seen Penrith come out this year, they're not scoring tries through shape. And we normally see that's where, Dylan Edwards will chime in, or Cleary will, formulate a kick or a pass. Right now, it's coming from very fluky stuff where you don't almost expect the try to be scored. And it's weird seeing that from Penrith because they've been so clinical over the last couple of years. And through the first couple of games, I'm pretty sure Cleary has 1 try assist at this point in time. And they can't score more than 16 points. He's not going to be that much useful apart from his kicking. Plus has an injury that he needs to get over as well.
If he didn't have an injury, I'd say keep Cleary 100%.
I'd be doing it.
The injury is a bit dodgy. Look at your team, and if you have players you can get rid of who are more desperate, like if you have Brandon Smith, if you have some of these other guys, then go get them. But if you don't have them and you need to make a spot, open up a spot, Cleary's not the worst sell, and then you buy him back a bit later on. In Supercoach, he's almost certainly a sell. In Fantasy, still probably a sell. Best option to downgrade Cleary. Let's just grab the halfbacks here. So let's juggle on a few things over here. But yeah, we'll get our halves. So we've got the halves now. All right, you've got Jerome Hughes, Mitch Moses, Sam Walker, Sean Johnson, Dylan Brown, Adam Reynolds. We have a few people in the comments with Adam Reynolds trades there. Ben Hunt, who played well, Luke Brooks, Ezra Mam. Okay, down the bottom here. I mean, look, Dewey apparently has an injury. There's a bit of word about that, so just keep an eye on that. Braden Trindle, he will be out by round 4 with Nico Hines coming in. Ezra Mam, he's relied on a double last game and a lot of attacking stats, and he still hasn't scored that well, so I wouldn't touch him. Luke Brooks is Brooks. He's not elite tier. Don't worry about him. It sort of starts at about Ben Hunt, the conversation. I would grab Jerome Hughes, personally. I think the Storm have a nice soft set of fixtures. There's no Pappenhausen. There's no Munster for a bit as well. So Jerome Hughes is going to be doing everything, and I wouldn't be shocked if we saw another 70-plus score from Jerome Hughes. And the other thing is you're getting a bit over 200K for downgrading Cleary to Jerome Hughes, so that's a juicy one. You can make a bet on Moses, but he's $70,000 more than Hughes, and I think he'll score worse than Hughes over the next couple of weeks. Sam Walker's a bit cheaper. Wouldn't do Sean Johnson. Wouldn't do Dylan Brown. I think Jerome Hughes is the guy.
Hunt for me is the other one.
We got Cleary for DCE as well.
Yeah, I definitely think that Jerome Hughes. Yeah.
DCE is the other one, and he had a great round 1. So whether he can reproduce that is interesting. But let's go to all positions here, and I'm going to go really quick fire. Real or fake on all these scores. So real or fake. Carraz 90. Real, but not that real. I wouldn't rush to bring him in, but if you have Carraz, happy. Hopgood 85, real. Jerome Hughes 78, real. Mitch Moses 77, real. Britton Nikora 73. Fake. Tino 70, real. Tino could be a juicy pod at some point. He could make that leap into the top tier. He's got the attacking ability. Tohu Harris, 69, absolutely real. More real than Tino. Sam Walker, 69. Fake. I think he's had some pretty easy fixtures so far. Sean Johnson, 69, fake. Martin Corey, 68, real, but not real enough to rush him in. Regan Campbell-Gillard, 67, fake. We know who he is. Jacob Little, 66, fake. Wade Egan, 65, fake. Blake Laurie, 65, fake. Harry Grant, 64, absolutely real. If you need a hooker, go get Harry Grant. Then we got Fanua Blake, 64. Nah. Tarpanay, 63. Yes, absolutely. Dave Fafita, 63. He's been pretty quietly going about his business and producing some great scores. Dave Fafita with a 60 average. So you can't go wrong with Dave Fafita as an upgrade option. 780K is pretty nice. And next to him, Carrigan, 755K. Also very real. They're two guys that I'd be looking at, trying to get if I had that sort of mid to high 700s budget. Garner, 63, to be seen. Eli Katoa, 63, absolutely real. He's that guy. Payne Haas, 821K, 62. He's that guy. Preston, 62. Don't expect Preston to score like that every week, but He's a buy. So we'll finish up here on the fantasy stuff with one more question. So we got the question here from Dragons. Thoughts on Wade Egan as an option? For me, Egan's not in that tier of hookers personally. Like if we look at the hooker list here,
Keep scoring a cheeky try though. It's
he's producing them.
as well. It's hard to judge. Yeah.
But if you had a bit of budget for hooker, so you can look at Egan at 652k. You then go up the list. I'm not interested in Brayley or Marshall King. But then that top four, Damien Cook, Harry Grant, Reece Robson, Reed Marnie. Reed Marnie at 712 could be the value option here. He's been really good for the Dogs so far. He makes a lot of tackles. He's central to their attack. From there, I mean, you pay a lot of money for Harry Grant and Damien Cook, but yeah, I think you either go Reed Marnie. I would skip Robson personally, and then go to Damien Cook's a bit more solid than Grant, but Grant has probably a little more upside. Grant gets some forwards back as well. Yeah, you can't go wrong with those guys. Question on Hodgson. I wouldn't grab Hodgson for fantasy personally, but yeah, so he got 29 last week. The way Hodgson plays doesn't really convert to fantasy. He's priced at 533k, and he's kind of rightly priced there. Yeah, so I would go Reed Marnie if you need a cheaper one. Damien Cook or Harry Grant if you need a top tier guy. All right, awesome. Well, look, that's everything from us on the fantasy side, on the NRL side. We're going to have some videos coming through on YouTube and on TikTok as well around fantasy pickups. So the buys, the sells, the guys you should keep, the guys that are traps, all that sort of thing, as well as Miles is going to go through our Supercoach waiver wire picks too. So look, stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to TikTok, and we'll see you on those videos. So glad to have been part of your Tuesday night, and hopefully your team gets the win unless you're versing Parramatta. We'll see you next time. And now just ending those broadcasts awkwardly.